thank to our sponsor, and I also want us to our new member. I want to say welcome. You're very, very important, and don't sit on the sidelines. Jump right in with us and get involved. It's a great organization, and we welcome you. Our speaker this morning is one of those people from Owensboro in Davis County who really doesn't need an introduction, but this is the way these things work. You get one anyway, even though I know you don't care. Rod Kuegel. He is the chair of the Owensboro Riverport Authority Board. He is the past president for the Council for Burley Tobacco, past president for the Burley Tobacco Growers Co-op, and past chair of the EDC. Currently, he serves on the board of Independence Bank, Brescia University, and the Greater Owensboro Chamber of Commerce. Rod is a graduate of Davis County High School, as well as the University of Kentucky. He is the co-owner of Kuegel Farms, LLC, along with his 93-year-old father, Bill, who everybody knows, who is a former Owensboro Riverport Authority board member as well. Rod is a Sunday school teacher and deacon at Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, and he was recently, in 2017, he was recognized as a distinguished alumnus for Davis County High School by the Foundation for the Davis County Public Schools, and I was there when you gave your speech to the kids, and it was phenomenal. Rod resides in Davis County with his wife Lois and farms with his sons Luke and Clay and his father Bill. And he has 3 wonderful granddaughters. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rod Kuegel.
Well, I want to thank the sponsors this morning, the Extension Service. Clint, when you ran through that, you had the 4-H in there, and that's where I got my first exposure. I saw 20,000 kids in the state of Kentucky got exposure, public speaking through 4-H. I never did win, but I got a lot of exposure. And Farm Bureau, all of us count on you, Joan. We count on our insurance. We count on the lobbying efforts of Farm Bureau, and we appreciate it. And to the chamber, how many of you were at the awards banquet last Friday night? Absolutely amazing, wasn't it? The job that they did, and I'd always known that Kirk was full of CRAP, but he proved it. Just if you missed it, you missed a great night, and you ought to make plans to come next year. I've got a slide up to the River Park Center, and I'm going to emphasize a lot today about what's going on in agriculture in the county, but I think we all realize, especially those of us in agriculture, how much we enjoy coming to the city and going and taking my granddaughters to see Cinderella at the River Park or to Smothers Park downtown. Our city commissioners are here, and we appreciate that, and getting to do all of the amenities that are only available because Owensboro is the city that it is, and the work that the chamber does is a big part of that, and thank you for that. I think the key and what I want to really emphasize this morning is understanding each other. You know, sometimes we have a problem with understanding on the farm. Our work ethic sometimes is really emphasized to the point that sometimes we take a little ridicule about it. And when we cut tobacco, Jeff, we emphasize everybody be there because it's really the tough time of the year. And several years ago, we had one of the boys, and he had missed about 3 days of tobacco cutting, and boy, that was a no-no. And so we were teasing him, riding him pretty hard, and he said he'd been to the doctor and he was having trouble with his heart, and we were teasing him about that a little bit, and it came time for lunch, and that beautiful, delicious bologna laid out there, Larry. You pick up a slice of bologna, a couple pieces of bread, and you have about 20 minutes of downtime. And the boy that they were teasing, Timmy, about his heart, took his bologna and went to the other side of the patch. He'd had enough. And my dad, having the big heart that he does, told one of the guys, said, holler over there and ask Timmy if he had an electrocardiogram. And Scotty thought for a minute, and he said, Bill, you've been on that boy all morning about his heart, and now you're going to start on him about his car. Sometimes we don't quite get the point across that we want to. And I think there's 2 points that are necessary to understand farmers. As we're growing up out there on the farm, we don't get much sugar coating. I was fortunate enough when I was growing up, my dad gave me enough free time that I got to play Pop Warner football. Well, I look forward to it, not so much to the football, but to get out of the tobacco patch, Mike. But I'd go and I struck up some great friendships. Steve Ford and Bobby Mythaler and Tony Yunker, who just passed away just recently, and Steve Kirkpatrick and Bobby Whitmer's here today. Bobby was on the other team. We lost all the time. He won all the time. But I played for 4 years. Times were different then than they are now. Charlie, Dad never came to a game for 4 years. Finally, the last game of the 4th season, and I look up in the stands and I see my dad. Boy, I swell up. I'm going to really do good. I'm going to tear them up, Brad. I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to do. I'm going to do it right. And I look up at halftime and he's gone. Didn't last long, but I was excited that he'd been there. So that night at supper, we sat down and I'm just waiting for him to tell me how he enjoyed the game, and not a word. Finished supper, and before I asked to be excused, that's different than it is now, right? Before I asked to be excused, I just had to ask Dad, what'd you think about the game? And Bobby, I puffed that chest out there and I was really proud. And the game, it wasn't what you saw today, it was the game. What'd you think about the game? Dad never looked up and he said, study hard, you're not ever going to be an athlete. And there's not much sugarcoating out there. It comes as fact on the farm. And the second thing is that from the time I was 8 years old, and the rest of these guys sitting around here, they're representing Farm Bureau Board and farmers, and maybe even these guys and gals in these blue jackets, from the time you're about 8 years old, you're on the farm. And I never knew, John, that there was a connection between compensation and work. Never drew the connection because there was never any compensation. There was just work. I got to UK and I got a job, Jimmy, after I got there. And I called my dad. I said, I got a job. He said, oh, that's good. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm working at a slaughter plant here. And I said, but it's something I'm confused about. At the end of the first week, they gave me money. He said, hang on to it. You won't need it up there. But it creates a special work ethic. And there are a lot of leaders in our midst and around Owensboro and the state of Kentucky that have come from that rural background and have those work ethics. And the first one I want to emphasize is Mark Newman. I don't know how many of you know Mark because he's been gone a long time, but he was raised in Thruston, had a farm over in Ohio County. That farm put him through college, and then he joined the Army to get to become a doctor. He is now head of the UK medicine up there, and was in Owensboro not long ago here in this picture that was in the Messenger Inquirer talking about the partnership with the cancer unit at UK in our hospital. And we're very proud of Mark, and he has that work ethic. I talked to him not long ago, and he said he spends from 6 to 8 hours a day trying to keep up with the latest trends, the latest information, and all the things that you have to do in medicine. And I'm just glad it's him and not me trying to keep up like that. Next fellow here you may know is here today, and what you may not know about him is that he is a tobacco cutter and hay hauler extraordinaire. Larry grew up on a farm, worked all his life, worked hard, learned that work ethic, and to show you how that comes through a little bit, you know, when we went through this past 3 weeks, and by the way, Chad, I don't know where you were, but I didn't burn up January. I froze up January, but it's gone, and I'm glad. But Larry was going to volunteer to drive a salt truck. He knew that the need was there. He knew that the job needed to get done, and was headed to go drive a salt truck till our city attorney found out and headed that off. Probably a good thing. But I asked these guys for a picture from the farm. These guys, Tony, that I'm talking about this morning, and so I called Larry and I said, send me a picture from the farm. And now you all see if you can draw the likeness there. I'll leave that up there a minute because I tried to see, tried to see that likeness, but I had to call Rosemary and I actually got a real picture of Larry when he was on the farm. But sometimes, things embellish themselves when they leave, Larry. I don't know if that's the case there or not, but a good friend of mine, and you can't tell from the back here, is Malcolm Bryant. Malcolm and I were at UK together, fraternity brothers together, and Malcolm is actually a farmer from Mount Sterling. And this is him looking over, that's his dad with him, looking over their farm there in Mount Sterling. And I never knew he had that pretty of legs, but Malcolm's in North Carolina. I can burn him pretty good right now. But Malcolm has such a work ethic that I stayed in this hotel. We try to go up a couple of times a year, take the grandkids up and let them swim when there's snow outside. They really enjoy that, and Malcolm has such a nice place there. And I was there one night and got on the elevator going down from the room, and Malcolm happened to be on the elevator. And he had a window cleaner and a rag in his hands where he had seen a window that didn't suit him and was up there cleaning it. And that's the kind of work ethic he has, and that's why he's been as successful as he has. An outstanding farmer that Owensboro is benefiting from. Next fellow is one of my mentors. You might not recognize that picture from a few years ago, but Billy Joe Miles. And Billy Joe has made a tremendous difference in my life and in the life of farmers, and I suggest to you in your life. Billy Joe's leadership took him to the UK Board of Trustees and then chair of the Board of Trustees, and he almost turned things around, Clint, up there with Dr. Lee Todd when he brought him in as president, changed the path of the university and the vision that he had. And then here locally, when Billy Joe went on the hospital board, later became chair, and through the leadership of that board and his vision, we are blessed with one of the outstanding healthcare centers in the state of Kentucky. And Bart mentioned my father, who's 93 and would like to have been with us today, but he was out there in that hospital in December, and they put a pacemaker in, and just something that revolutionary, and they make it so simple, did such a good job, and just we're so fortunate to have that here, and opportunities it gives us not to have to take chemo in Nashville or have to drive to Louisville or Lexington. It's just a great blessing for us, and without the vision of this man, I'm not sure that hospital would have been there. This is Billy Joe with some of his family, his dad and mom who have passed, but of course Deborah's in there. But what he's done for us in wheat has been unbelievable. Jeff, I think that probably everybody that had intense management wheat this year had close to 100 bushel average, and that's a big step because back when Larry Condor was farming, it was 35 or 40 bushel, and so in one generation that's about tripled from where it was. I'm sure that you all can't tell who this is, but it's a guy I work with quite closely, and Brian Wright. And Brian was a farm boy. He had that's his grandfather he's eating watermelon there with, and he said he couldn't find any pictures of him working. I don't know what the deal was with that, but I'm not sure you can find any of me either. But Brian was out there and spent lots and lots of time with his granddad on his granddad's farm. Granddad had 13 children and taught them all how to work. And the grandkids that came around taught them too, Brandon. That's the way it worked. And what he's done for us at the Riverport and how he's moving us forward, and his involvement in national organizations, state organizations, and just keeps us moving, and that keeps Owensboro moving. And this is some of Brian's family. And I don't know who cut the hair on the farm, but I'm pretty sure there was one person that cut them all. And if you notice there, Brian is the second from the left on the back row. And the flower child beside him is his Aunt Becky. And his Aunt Becky now is a coordinator for the regional farmers market. But when they were young, during the day they were well behaved and really were accomplished children. And then on Saturday afternoon, their granddad went to town, and they became Bonnie and Clyde. They stole his pickup and drove all over the farm, and 10 or 11 years old, just outlaws. I'm telling you, they were outlaws. And one of the nights that they took it, before he got home, he usually parked it under a tree, but he had parked it somewhere else. They had forgot he parked it somewhere else, and they parked it under the tree, which was enough to give them away. But later that night, a big storm came. That tree fell and totaled that pickup. So if you're at the Riverport or you happen to stop at the farmer's market, lock your car. Becky is coordinating the farmer's market, and the farmer's market is the epitome of urban and rural mix. They have the opportunity there you meet hand to hand the person that has produced what you want to consume, the quality, the camaraderie, the atmosphere there is tremendous, and they're working through right now trying to get a building. You see, all of them are using tents, and if you go to a farmer's market in a large city, they'll all have a building. There'll be some outside of there, but they have an anchor, and the farmer's market's working toward that now, about a 400,000 plus project, and they have it all but about $40,000. And so if you need some place to help, if you want to invest someplace that'll make a difference, this is a real opportunity for you. Some of the people that are participants of the 35 or 37 participants they have at Farmers Market is the Gillis family. And Jim has started Hillview Meats. And it's a very high quality, high end meat, and it's all natural, and it's what you want. It's what the consumer's wanting. They want to meet the person that takes care of the cows. They want to know that the husbandry's been good, that there's no antibiotics, that there's no hormones, and Jim and his family can promise you that, and they're stepping up to increase the understanding that we have between urban and rural. And the Cecil family. Just look at the one in the middle. The other two you don't have to look at. It's not, but they're doing an outstanding job. And Suzanne's leadership and Suzanne's ideas out there. And she has a barn that she's converted into a party barn, and just so many things. And they have a box contract that you can get, and you get a box of vegetables. What is in season during that time, and Richard, I've made a couple of mistakes from time to time and maybe got my sprayer a little close to my neighbor's garden, and they don't like that much. And so what I do when I make that mistake, I call Suzanne. And Suzanne delivers them a basket a week for 3 or 4 weeks, and boy, then I've gone from a bad list to a good list because it's such a good quality product, and they practice organic practices. And if you hadn't experienced that and you enjoy summer vegetables, you ought to call Suzanne. Reed's Orchard, over 100,000 people there last year went through that place. Several events, but what outstanding relationships are built there between urban and rural. Trunnell's Market out on the south side. Kevin told me he's had 50,000 people go through there, including this little guy. But it's becoming a destination place where you can go and your children can play, and you can get exposed to some of the best vegetables and other things that they have to offer out there. Jerry O'Brien out on the West End, and Jerry doesn't like to have a very high profile, but he's a great guy, an entrepreneur to be sure. Last year, Jerry produced 60 million pounds of pork. Did you hear me? 60 million pounds of pork. Carl, that's enough for all of Owensboro all year, all of Louisville all year, and most of Bowling Green all year. And he's doing it right here on the west side of Davis County. 2 semi-loads of hogs go out every single day during the week. So it's amazing what he's doing out there, what an entrepreneur he is. This is Terry and Bobby Knott's family, or some of Terry and Bobby Knott's family, the farmers, Knott brothers, who do an outstanding job. And I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, or maybe a little longer than that, when they got the award on the outstanding corn yield, 337 bushel per acre. And I want to break that down a little bit for you so you understand it very well. They take 22 and a half pounds of seed and put it over an acre. That's pretty critical how you place that seed over an acre, 22 and a half pounds. And from that 22 and a half pounds, they harvested 18,000 pounds. 800 to 1. Now, Jesus talked about in the parable 30 to 1, 60 to 1, and the real good stuff, we're at 100 to 1. 800 to 1 with the technology provided by the Extension Office, by the university, and by the seed companies. It's absolutely amazing what these farmers are doing out here. That's them receiving the award on the grain. And back when Larry Condor farmed, he averaged about 75 to 100 bushel of corn. So in one generation, that's threefold. This is one of the Knott boys with a chicken, and they have 33 chicken houses. They take care of 33 chicken houses. And in those 33 chicken houses, they produce 28 million pounds of chicken. 28 million, Clay. 28 million pounds of chicken. That's enough for our Chick-fil-A all year and 400 more Chick-fil-A's across the country. They supply enough chicken to supply 400 Chick-fil-A stores. That's how much they're producing out there. It's phenomenal. This is the boss of the Stephen Farms. There's Brad and Nick and Randall doing what they do best, eat. This is Nick and his family and Brad and his family, and they like to come to Owensboro on Monday nights and go to the Moonlight. Kids eat free Monday nights at the Moonlight. Brad and Nick harvested 3,700 acres of soybeans this year at a 65 bushel an average yield. That's 240,000 bushel of soybeans. And this is one of many operations across the county. And I think Clint and I talked about it at one time, about $250 million farming operations in Davis County. $250 million farming operations in Davis County. This is just one of them. This is Mr. O'Brien that started Owensboro Grain, and he started Owensboro Grain by riding a bicycle in 1906, going around buying corn out of farmers' corn cribs. And since that time, his leadership, the rest of the family's leadership, have the largest family-owned soybean crushing facility in the United States right here on the river. And they crush 40 million bushels of soybeans a year. 40 million bushels. And it's a great asset to Owensboro. Our farmers, because we're located on the river, we receive a premium. And because Owensboro Grain crushes soybeans here, we receive a premium. And they can crush all the soybeans made in Davis County in about 3 weeks. We only supply about 10% of their needs. That's why this river is so important to them, to come through there and to be able to get that transportation for bringing in those soybeans and making that operation so successful. And I'll tie it up here because I think this is their construction project that's going on now, probably another 30 jobs to their 160 they already have. But it's tremendously important for us to realize that we're all woven together, that we all rely on each other for something. Whether you live downtown, whether you live out on the south side, whether you live in St. Joe. We're all tied together with something. And Rodney, we're all interdependent. And your success is my success. My success is your success. And when the city's successful, our farming community is successful. When our farming community is successful, our city benefits too. Thank you very much.